Well, I'm with Para Triathlete Oscar Kelly, who's joined us for the next video in our series for VICTA Sport. Really pleased to have you with us, Oscar. Thank you for joining us. I suppose to get us started, really, could you give us a little bit of background about yourself, including a little bit about your vision impairment as well, please?
Yeah, my name's Oscar Kelly. I'm 23, I think now. Time's going quick. I'm a B3 athlete, or S13, whatever you want to call it, which is least impaired, at least for VIs for triathlon. So I've got central vision loss, which was a congenital genetic whatever from my family, basically. Um, Degenerative condition. So it's just slowly going away. But thought I'd do something about it and have some fun whilst I still got something.
And that bit of fun is something that you've taken you quite far, the triathlon. Before we get on to possibly some more exciting news about the triathlon, how did you get into it to begin with? What was your route into triathlon, and were there other sports you'd done sort of get to that point?
Um, so I wasn't classically a sporty kid. I was active, always pushed to be active by my parents just to be fit and healthy. But I basically taught myself how to ride a bike when I was like two, and I was always eager and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't common where I grew up to ride your bike to school, but I was that one person that did. And when I was like 14, 15, I got banned from cycling school because it was a bit reckless, just a bit of my own personality and also not being able to see all that much combines into um, some questionable decisions. Um, and I just sort of decided I had to do cycling somehow. And I tried a bit of just cycling on its own. I wouldn't go on a tandem. You couldn't catch me dead on a tandem. And I met someone along the way who was a different disability, but their mum talked to my dad and like, oh, they do triathlon for parasport, all this sort of stuff, and for younger people and all this stuff, which we knew about triathlon, but just not that there was such an infrastructure. And sort of thought I'd give it a go. Did a couple of what we call duathlons, which are running and cycling. Still not on a tandem, on a solo bike, and I was my first duathlon. I came second against able-bodied athletes, so I was and no clue what I was doing at all, and no clue where I was in terms of position. But yeah, so I was like, I should probably learn how to swim properly. So I had done a lot of water sport before then, sort of whitewater kayaking and all that. So I thought I could swim. Turns out they're very different types of swimming. And I got picked up onto one of the British pathway squads pretty quick, and then did my first race, and it was eventful to say the least. I got lost in the swim. It was great to the first buoy, and then I couldn't see the next one, which was a bit difficult. And then I crashed on the first corner of the bike because I just wasn't looking where I was going. And but I made it round, loved it, and I was like, I should probably go on the tandem now. That's probably the wiser decision. And it's sort of just gone from there. Um, I struggled a lot with classification when I was younger. I I was classified as severely sight impaired, but during classifications, I wasn't seen as being strong enough impairment to be classifiable for international classifications. And then I did get classified, and COVID happened. And then year after COVID, I got my um, international classification, um, and did my international debut, um, which did pretty well at. And then the year after that, we went and did commies, which didn't go as well as we wanted, but it was eventful as always. And then yeah, just keep on chipping away. And now I'm generally a podium athlete on most bold stage races and just having fun doing it.
You mentioned that you were very resistant to tandems and struggled with classification. Is that just linked to just sort of that acceptance of your sight loss and what that meant for you as a person?
Um, kind of, but not at the same time. I'm very independent still. I want to do everything myself. Um, there's a lot of things that I will do that I won't, or my guide won't do. Basically, anything to do with a bike, I'm sorting it out. My guide's useless and all that sort of stuff. And no, I'm an independent person, and it's how I was brought up. So my mum's got the same condition, my granddad's got the same condition, and my mum was very successful in her own field, and my granddad, although he did have a highly educated job, he was very highly skilled at his job, and he was the only person that could do his job. So it was always pushed to be independent. You're no different to your siblings. This isn't going to hold you back. And I took that quite literally. I'm like, no, I'm going to do what I can for as long as I can. And I think it basically just saw it as, look, if I'm going to lose it at some point, I might as well, take advantage of the time that I've got and enjoy myself and experience as much as I can whilst I've got sight. And even when I lose it, I'm not going to stop that from letting me experience stuff. But then again, there's always a bit of acceptance and stuff, and I think it's always a bit rough, especially when you can start to see it going. But it is what it is, and you just got to crack on. It doesn't stop anyone else. So, you know,
Obviously, the nature of triathlon is essentially three different sports. Um, how do you find it in terms of balancing your time between all the different disciplines that are involved? And is there one that you sort of favor more than the other?
I wouldn't say I'm good at all three. You sort of just average. I've got lots of friends that are just from single sports, a lot of time single disciplines within triathlon, and they're like, oh yeah, you can't ride a bike to save your life. You can't swim really, can you? Um, it's the whole thing about triathlon is even on able-bodied side, they're massively fast, and some of them would be competitive in single disciplines, but you've got like cycling and running contradict each other. Swimming contradicts both those as well because you put on weight in different places, and a lot of the time you're trying to be as light as possible, in cycling or in running or something like that, where you don't have that in swimming. It all sort of contradicts a little bit, but at the end of the day, you've got to work out what you're good at, work on your weaknesses, and just find a route to what's quickest for you to get to the finish line. And within that, we've got to work with guides as well to work out where we excel together, where we can take time out of everyone else, and what we can do. But it doesn't stop us from being able to run pretty darn quick, cycle pretty quick, and swimming's a bit harder, but swimming pretty quick as well.
Could you
And
tell us a
it's
little bit about? Could you tell us a little bit about the adaptations that are made for sort of para triathlon, especially the way that you compete? I think if anyone hasn't isn't aware, obviously you mentioned about guides, and obviously on the bike you've got pilot. Could you tell us a bit more about those adaptations that allow you to compete?
Yeah, so there's specific adaptations for different classifications, but we'll just stick to VI because that's what you'll all be interested in. So you have two waves for VI. You've got the B1 classification, that's the fully impaired athletes who can't see at all, who wear blackouts. And for men, they get a 2 minute 41 head start. And women, I want to say it's a 3 minute 21 head start, something around there. And then after then, you've got the B2 and B3 classifications, which are, they say, just visually impaired, but they're severely sight impaired athletes still. Um, and we basically swim tied together, ride on a tandem, and run tied together. You've got the same guide for the whole of the race, so it's not like you can swap people out. On the swim, you have an elasticated, basically bungee to keep yourself tied together. It comes down to personal preference where you tie that. I'm usually around my leg. It's just easiest. It's easiest to take off for me and everything. And you get your own ways of how to communicate what you're doing within the swim and everything. That's just down to personal preference. Transitions, again, that's just personal what works for you as a duo. But I'm pretty self-independent there. To take wetsuit off if we've got one on, put helmets on, all that sort of stuff. Jump on the bike and then yeah, cycle around tandem. There's not much to it. You spinning your legs, you communicate back and forth. It's easy to communicate there. But when it's louder, higher speeds, all that sort of stuff, myself and my guide have got tapping, communication, whatever's, um, which I don't know if other people do. And then transition again, that comes down to personal preference, what you do. And then run, you have a run tether, which is a set length, like maximum. Same for swim, there's a set maximum it's allowed to be. But it's for the run, it's not elasticated. So it's usually either on your hand or at your waist, down to personal preference again. So yeah, basically, and the B1s have to wear blackouts the whole time to make sure they can't see anything. But apart from that, you're all racing for the same medal, and you're just trying to catch up to all the B1s and fend off all the other B2 and threes.
Obviously, you're now competing at quite a high level, and just before we started recording, you're saying you're training 3 times a day at the moment. For any sort of young person watching this, sort of thinking, "Oh, how do I get into the sport?" Obviously, they're not going to go straight in at competitions and three times a day training. But what advice would you give to someone that is looking to get involved in triathlon, or in fact any of those sort of three disciplines that are involved?
First of all, I'd say don't look at how much people are training. Like training is key, but consistency of what you can do is more key. If you can do, say, 1 week at 15 hours, but then you've got to take 3 weeks off, that you're not going to get any fitter than if you're just able to do 5, 6, 7 hours every single week. That's what it is. You'd want to work up to high volumes if you're doing endurance sport, um, because that's what's going to get you fitter. But then you've got balance recovery and training. And I'm lucky that I don't have this is all I do, so I've got a lot of time to recover. But even still, it can get hard. In terms of just trying to get into sport, give it a go. Basically, don't give it a go. See if you enjoy it. Don't let any if anything goes wrong the first couple of times, don't let that put you off. Just give it a proper go a few times, and if you still don't like it, just go, okay, that's not a sport for me. Most sports have a really good pathway system within the UK. I know triathlon does, and there are other sports, but there's Paralympics GB put on basically I forgot what they call them, but days where there's multiple sports in an environment and
Yeah.
you get to try out a bit of everything. And then individual sports will have something called a talent ID, where you again do a bit of parts to do with those sports to see what you look like basically. So for most sports, it'd just be individual tests, but for triathlon, we do a bit of everything. See how you look. It's not just down to what times you can do; it's your technique. It's all sorts of different things. And basically, if they can see scope for you to improve massively, and enthusiasm to do it, and within triathlon, you'd get put onto a pathway system anywhere from grassroots all the way up to what they call next gen these days, and then world class programs above that. And you can be racing internationally on next gen program, which is very exciting. And they don't have all the money in the world, but they'll try and support you to the best of their abilities. Especially, I know British Triathlon have just bought a couple more new tandems that actually work a bit better, which I understand that's a big cost. I've spent massive amounts on bikes, and they're not cheap. Any adapted equipment isn't, but they'll try and, especially if you're only just getting into, if you've been doing it for a couple of years, you'd be starting to expect to get your own bike. But if you're just getting into it, they're trying to support you to the best of their abilities, try and get you in touch with guides, all this sort of stuff. So there is a support network out there. You've just got to reach out and you've just got to give it a go.
It sounds like you've tried quite a few different sports to then land upon what you now enjoy doing and what you love doing. What has obviously you mentioned at the start, you're very much very competitive podium athlete now. But what has sport given to you beyond the medals, that kind of that element to it? What has sport given to you that keeps you sort of training through those times when you don't want to train? What has sport given to you?
Honestly, I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't do sport. If you asked me when I was 14, you'd be like, you wouldn't catch me dead doing sport consistently. Um, and I probably wasn't going down the right path at that point in time. But I'm not saying I'm not academic, but it doesn't interest me. So I didn't really ever go into. I went to uni, but I dropped out all this stuff, and I only ever went to uni to come here to Loughborough to train, basically. And I think for me, it's most of it's just a dopamine rush, really, for sport. I really enjoy competing, and competing's I generally enjoy that more than training. Training's tough, and being visually impaired, I can't just go out and ride a bike outside, without being on a tandem and trying to get guys back can be difficult, even when this is what you do. So spend a lot of time on indoor trainers and stuff, which is just dead boring. Um, but you just try and that's just individual to me. There's a lot of athletes. Some athletes love the training and don't enjoy the racing as much, and some athletes are the opposite. And you just try and find ways to enjoy what you basically what you don't like. And if you can push through that, you can get through anything.
It's taking you to some places, and just to wrap up, and I think it's possibly safe to talk about it because this will be going out after the official announcement. But what will you be doing later this summer?
So later this summer, touch wood, nothing changes before then. I should be competing at my first games, which will be very exciting. I won't
How's your
quite be
French?
the not great. I won't quite be the youngest athlete, but between me and my guide, we'll have the youngest combined age by quite a way. So that's quite a big achievement for us. Generally, you're older for doing triathlon. You don't have the fitness until you're a bit older, so it's a big thing for us to even go to the games. But we'll be pushing for that podium spot as well. It's going to be a tough battle, but we'll have to see. We've just got a new bike, which should hopefully make a big difference, and fingers crossed it goes well.
Well, best of luck for it. We'll be keeping an eye out for your results and your competitions and your races, and all the best with it. Thank you for joining us and speaking to us, Oscar.
Thank you very much.